Good morning. We'll get started in just one moment, please. Please bear with us. Good morning and welcome to docket number 240804, PR's annual Shared Clean Energy Facility Program Review for year 6. My name is Chairman Marissa Gillette. I'm joined virtually today by my colleagues, the Vice Chairman Jack Bukowski and Commissioner David Arconti. The agenda this morning in front of us is to receive a joint presentation from our colleagues at the Eversource and UI companies, followed by stakeholder and participant discussion. Just a reminder that similar to other remote teleconferences that PRA hosts, while we are projecting to YouTube and we obviously are with you here, we do ask that you remember we have a court reporter with us, which means that I need you to do a couple of things. Identify yourself by name and affiliation for clarity of the transcript. And also please refrain from using the chat function. It is not part of the official record. Any questions or comments do need to be vocalized at the appropriate time to ensure that they are part of the record. Following the presentation from the companies, we will turn first to questions from PRA staff. I do believe we'll have plenty of time to address questions from other stakeholders. So if you know that you're going to have questions following for the EDCs following their presentation, you can get into the queue at any time by using the raise hand function. Again, I will turn first to PRA staff questions. Following the EDC's presentation Q&A, we will open it up more broadly for other stakeholders to offer comment. I think it's going to be a fairly quick technical meeting this morning, so I thank everyone for joining us on a Friday morning. And I will turn it over to our colleagues at the EDCs as we get your presentation pulled up. Whomever wants to kick us off. I see a couple of folks joining us, and I want to thank you for being here.
Good morning. I'm just waiting to see the presentation. All right, thank you. So good morning, everyone. My name is Aaron Dabauskas. I am the Operations Manager of Renewable Programs at Eversource. I'm joined today by Brian Rice, Director of Customer Solar Programs at Eversource, as well as Isabel Hazelwood, Program Manager for Solar Programs at Eversource. And joining us from United Illuminating will be Katarina Miller, a Principal Analyst, and John King, an Analyst also at United Illuminating. Next slide, please. So our discussion topics for today, we'll talk about the SCEF program results from both EDCs. And then following that, we have a few slides on the Inflation Reduction Act and how it aligns with the SCEF program. Next slide, please. So here's a look at Eversource bids received and executed in years 2 through 5. Blue represents the number of overall bids received, and green is the number of executed agreements. We did start with year 2 to keep the variables in the analysis generally consistent. As a reminder, the price cap structure in year 1 allowed for variable pricing for all 20 years of the tariff term. But if there is interest in year 1 data and the comparison, we'd be happy to provide it after the technical session. I think there's not too much to be taken here. This year's RFP, we did receive the least amount of interest in the first round of the offering, but program rules dictate that a second offering of the current year's RFP has to be opened. In the event that bids are received or that not enough bids are received to fill the allotted capacity. We're currently in the process of running that second offering. The results are not yet public, but I would be willing to offer that we did receive enough bids to be oversubscribed for our allotted capacity for this year, assuming all the bids pass eligibility screens and are selected. Next slide, please. So this is a look at Eversource's SCEF capacity data, again, years 2 through 5. Just to note, for the first 3 years of the program, Eversource had 20 megawatts available to award, and starting in year 4, and for the remainder of the program, the capacity is up to 40 megawatts for Eversource. In years 2 and 3, we executed our fully allotted capacity of 20 megawatts, as was the case in year 4, where we did fill our fully available 40 megawatts. And this year, again, in year 5, with 40 megawatts available, we were only able to execute a little less than half of the available capacity in that first offering. But as I previously mentioned, we did receive more than the available capacity in the second offering. Next slide, please. So here's a look at some pricing data from the Eversource perspective. Blue does represent the non-carport price cap for each solicitation year, starting in year 2. In year 2, the price cap was $159 per megawatt hour, all the way down to $133 per megawatt hour in year 5. There hasn't been a whole ton of fluctuation here with highest and lowest bid prices received. But I think the main takeaway is that the weighted average bid price of submitted bids has gone up slightly over the years of the program, and that's despite price caps steadily decreasing. And next slide, please. And per the notice of this technical meeting, this is a look at the highest compensated projects in Eversource territory from years 2 through 5. The highest total overall compensated project is a nearly 5 megawatt solar project bid into this year's offering, right near the price cap of $133 per megawatt hour. And the highest total compensated project relative to system size was a fuel cell in year 2, as compensation is directly related to production and price. And with fuel cells having a significantly higher capacity factor than solar, it played out that the fuel cell has the highest relative compensation to system size. And just to note, to date, in Eversource territory, at least, that's the only fuel cell that we've selected in any year of the program. The next slide, please. And I'm going to turn it over to John King from UI to talk about their program results.
Thank you, Aaron. As you can see here, these are the United Illuminating SCEF bids that we have received over the past couple years. As you can see, our results are relatively different than Eversource's in that we do not receive the quantity of bids that they receive. If you look here, you can see in year 2, United Illuminating had received 4 bids and executed 2. In year 3, we received 3 bids and executed 2. In year 4, we also received 3 bids and executed 2. And in year 5, we had received 3 bids and executed 3 bids as well. Next slide, please. Here's a look at our capacity available, received, and executed. From the chart, you see that UI received 8 megawatts in year 1 of the program. And of these 8 megawatts, 1.8 were actually executed in year 2 of the program after eligibility. Year 3, UI had received about 11 megawatts of its available 5 megawatt capacity, and 5 megawatts was executed in year 3. Year 4, UI had received just under 10 megawatts and executed all of those megawatts. And this because of the increase in the available capacity allocation in year 4 of the program. This resulted in 5.004 megawatts rolling into year 5. UI had conducted a round 2 RFP in August in the fall of last year and did not receive any bids. So that 5 megawatts was rolled over into year 5 this program year. In year 5, UI had received 11.2 megawatts above our 10 megawatt allocated capacity, but with the rollover, we were undersubscribed. Therefore, we ran a second offering this fall, and we did not receive any bids. We will have 3.8 megawatts rolling into year 6 of the program. Next slide, please. Here's a breakdown of the pricing for UI over the past 4 years. In year 2, the high and the low is 136 and 90. Please keep in mind the 2 bids that we received at the $90 price range were actually disqualified in year 2 of the program. In year 3, the high and the low were 135 and 129.90 with an average of $132.3. In year 4, the high and the low was 168 and 130 with an average of 143. And year 5, the high was 133 and the low was 130, resulting in an average of 132. As you can see, the average bid prices that we have been receiving have been right about around the price cap. And for the weighted averages of these projects in years 2 through 5, year 2 was $101. Year 3 was 132, and year 4 was 149, and year 5 was $131 for weighted averages. Next slide, please. Here's a breakdown of the SCEF compensation for UI projects. As you can see, and as you can experience in our service territory, we do favor fuel cell projects in the SCEF program. In year 1, the highest compensation was a solar project, and after that, we have seen all fuel cell projects being the highest compensated in the program. But all the fuel cells relatively having an estimated annual compensation right around the $4 million range. And now I will pass to Isabel Hazelwood.
Great, thank you, John. So I'm going to give a quick overview of some of the developments on the subscriber side of the program, particularly alignment with the Inflation Reduction Act, as well as a supplemental filing that the EDCs provided on October 1st. So in last year's annual program review, PIRA directed the EDCs to investigate how SCEF projects could potentially qualify for the federal low-income economic development project bonus tax credit, which provides an additional 20% federal incentive for qualifying community solar projects that serve low-income households. There are 3 primary components to the guidelines provided by the Internal Revenue Service for how projects can qualify for this additional tax credit. So first, the facility must serve multiple qualifying low-income households. I'll get into the definition of a qualifying household on the next slide. But then, in addition to being qualifying households, at least 50% of the facility's total output in kilowatts must be assigned to those qualifying low-income households. And then third, each qualifying household must be provided a bill credit discount of at least 20%. Next slide, please. So the IRS defines a qualifying household as a household where the household has an income below 200% of the federal poverty level or less than 80% of the area median income. At least 50% of the financial benefits of the electricity produced by the facility have to be provided to households who meet these income guidelines. There is an option for these households to qualify under what the IRS calls categorical eligibility. So this would be programs where the customers are already participating in a separate need-based program that could be a federal, state, tribal, or utility program that uses income limits that meet the IRS definitions as income qualifying. So in the SCEF program, the way that we enroll and define low-income customers or identify income eligible customers as low income is through participation in our financial hardship programs, primarily the low income discount rate. And in order to qualify for the LIDR, the household must have an income limit at or below 60% of state median income. So for all metropolitan statistical areas in Connecticut, 60% of state median income is below 80% of area median income. So we believe that all of our SCEF projects will meet the definition of categorical eligibility for our low-income customers participating in the program. In addition, in May earlier this year, PIRA ruled on motion number 10 in docket 230804 that any SCEF placed in service after December 6th of 2023 would kind of reshuffle the allocations to the different subscriber categories within the SCEF program so that 50% of all SCEF subscribers will be low-income customers. So in terms of the first requirement that 50% of the participants or 50% of the financial benefits are going to income eligible customers, we believe that all SCEF projects should meet that requirement going forwards. Next slide, please. The second requirement in the IRS guideline is that each qualifying household must be provided a bill credit discount rate of at least 20%. The guidelines allow for kind of two community solar models to qualify for this low-income economic development bonus tax credit. So one being kind of the traditional solar model, community solar model, where customer signs up for a subscription, receives an on-bill credit, and then pays a portion of that credit to the system owner, which is not the SCEF model. But they also have an allowance for program models like the SCEF model, where the household has only a no or only a nominal cost of participation. So similar to the SCEF program, where we're providing the SCEF credit to subscribers at no cost. That's also a program model that the IRS will allow to qualify for this bonus tax credit. But the way that they calculate that 20% savings requirement for program models like the SCEF program is that the financial benefit provided to the qualifying household, including utility bill credits, divided by the total value of the electricity produced by the facility, including any electricity services, products, and credits provided in conjunction with the electricity produced, must result in a 20% savings for the customer. Next slide, please. So the IRS provided in their guideline an example of how this would be calculated. Basically, in their example, the savings have to be at least 20% of the total value of the electricity produced by the facility. We interpret this to mean, based on the definition in the prior slide, that would be calculated as the value of the SCEF credit divided by the total cost of the EDC to procure the electricity and provide the subscriber bill discount. So the calculation, in our opinion, would be the subscriber credit divided by the price of the subscriber credit plus the awarded tariff price for that particular SCEF project, which obviously is individual for each project. But in our calculation, it would be any bid that was above 10 cents would not deliver a 20% bill savings to the subscriber, because we'd be calculating 2.5 cents divided by the total cost of the tariff plus the credit, which would be 12.5 cents. So that's how the EDCs interpret the IRS guideline on this requirement. Next slide, please. And then the last issue or concern that the EDCs previously brought up regarding compliance for SCEF projects with the federal tax credit requirements is that in the reporting requirements to the IRS from the applicant, they are required to provide a final list of households or other entities served with the name, address, subscription share, income status of the qualifying household served, and the income verification method used. Originally, we had concerns about sharing lists of SCEF subscribers with the system owners who are applying for this bonus tax credit, because that's personally identifiable information and typically not information that we're able to share with third parties, since Eversource and UI are the ones doing all of the customer enrollment for the SCEF program. However, after further reviewing the IRS guidelines, there is an opportunity where we believe that we can attest to the breakdown of the subscribers and their income verification method and subscription share in aggregate for each SCEF that's applying for the bonus tax credit, and we would have no concerns with providing that attestation letter to system owners. Next slide, please. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch base on the supplemental filing that the EDCs filed on October 1st. These are primarily administrative changes that we wanted to make sure that we included in the program manual for this year. So on August, I believe it was the 19th, in docket 240501, the authority provided a ruling that said that the current New Start, the Eversource New Start and the UI bill forgiveness programs would be replaced by a new matching payment program that would be the same for both EDCs. Previously, in our subscriber selection process in SCEF, we had been using a prioritization for customers that were participating in New Start and the bill forgiveness program in the enrollment process. So since those programs are going to be sunsetting on November 1st of this year, we wanted to propose that we would replace that prioritization with a prioritization of new MPP customers. And then lastly, we wanted to just update the program manual to more clearly indicate that any projects placed in service after December 6, 2023 will use the new subscription allocation structure, which requires that 50% of the subscribers are low-income customers, 20% are small business customers, 20% are in our kind of mixed bucket LMI category, and then 10% of subscriptions would be available for voluntary enrollment customers who apply to the program for a SCEF subscription. So those are just some clarifications that we made to the program manuals in our supplemental filing on October 1st. And with that, I think that's all of our slides. So we can open it up for questions or take whatever next steps the authority would like.
Great, thank you very much. We'll turn, as I mentioned before, first to authority staff questions and invite any other stakeholders to get into the queue. So we're going to start, I believe, with Molly Charles, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And I want to thank the EDCs for that presentation. So my first few questions are just in regards to the SCEF program results, not regarding any particular slide, but I was wondering if the EDCs could each provide insights into why this year's SCEF procurement was less competitive in general than the NRES procurements that we saw this year.
I think, at least from an Eversource perspective, it's a little bit too early to say that. From the first go around, we were undersubscribed, but results aren't public for the second offering of the RFP. But I can say that that the bidding was pretty competitive, and we are oversubscribed based on the capacity received in the bid stack in the second RFP. I'm not sure if UI has anything they want to offer, but it's a bit difficult to make that conclusion at this point for this year.
Yeah, I would also note that in our UI NRES procurement, we were undersubscribed in various categories this year. So it's similar to both SCEF and NRES that we're not receiving the allocated up to the allocated capacity that we have.
Thank you. And I appreciate the clarification that there was a second procurement. My second question, did either of the EDCs have projects that were not selected in last year's procurement resubmit this year?
That's something we can get that information for you. I don't have that offhand.
Is that the same for UI?
From year 4 to I have our order 6 or order 11, yeah, order 6 up right now. From year 4 to year 5, we did not see a repeat. However, from year 3 to year 4, we had see a repeat bid.
Thank you. And then just one more question on the program results. Have the EDCs seen any trends in the size of projects that are being submitted or selected, if you have that information on hand?
We don't. If we could, that's something we could also provide if you're interested after the fact. So easy enough to do an analysis on that for you.
Thank you. Same for UI?
Yeah, same for UI. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have a couple questions on slide 14. If you could turn to that one, please. Thanks. So I was wondering if the EDCs could please clarify why in this formula, the total value of the electricity produced by the facility includes both the awarded tariff price and the SCEF subscriber credit value. I believe Verigy had suggested in written comments that the total value of electricity produced should only be the tariff award. So I'm just wondering if the EDCs could comment on that.
Yeah, of course. If you could actually go one slide up. Or sorry, backwards. I meant like the previous slide. So yeah, this one. So our interpretation is based on this definition. So the IRS states, in cases where the qualifying household has no or nominal cost of participation, as is the case with the SCEF program, the bill discount credit rate should be calculated as the financial benefit provided to a qualifying household, which would be the 2.5 cent bill credit, 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour bill credit, divided by the total value of electricity produced by the facility and assigned to the qualifying household, which includes any electricity services, products, and credits provided in conjunction with the electricity produced by the facility. So our interpretation of this is that it should be the credit plus the tariff price, because that's the total value of the electricity produced. We're purchasing the electricity at the awarded bid price to the subscriber organization, and the credits provided in conjunction with that electricity would be the bid price plus the 2.5 cents that we're providing to the participating subscriber. So obviously we're not the be all end all decider of this. It's really the IRS, and I understand that I saw Verigy's written comments and they had a different interpretation, but that was our understanding of how that bill credit should be calculated.
I appreciate that. So just to follow up on that, so the cost to the EDCs of providing the electricity would be the tariff price plus the credit value, or would the credit value be included in the tariff price?
We consider them to be additive. I mean, the total cost for us to operate the program is we're paying both the bid price and the credit to the subscriber. So our total cost is that bid price plus the subscriber credit.
Thank you. And then just one final question on this. So using the EDC's proposed formula for calculating the 20% savings, how many or what share of SCEF projects selected so far would meet that 20% discount standard?
I don't have that number at the tip of my fingers, but I think, as Aaron pointed out in earlier slides, we are seeing bid prices rising over time. So I think most of the projects that we would have that would qualify probably were procured in years 1 to 2 of the program.
Thank you. And that is all of my questions. So I'll turn it back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have Christopher Arpin up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank the EDCs for their presentation and time today. I would like to first turn to slide 3, please. So my first question, can Eversource please provide any insights into the decline in the number of SCEF bids received in year 5 compared to previous years, and in contrast to UI? Is it just because the second selection is not yet included in these results?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. The second selection isn't public yet, isn't finalized. I think the numbers will look drastically different when the second offering is included in our numbers.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Now I'd like to turn to slide 5, please. So my question here, what factors contributed to the increase of over $20 in the average weighted bid price in year 5 compared to year 4, according to Eversource?
Again, it's a little bit skewed by the fact that all the results aren't included in there. I think bidder behavior, people bidding at or near the price cap and just kind of hoping that they receive an award would be one of the reasons. But I think once the second set of numbers is factored in, that red line would be a little bit lower and more in line with the rest of the weighted averages that you'd see on the chart.
Is that typical compared to previous solicitations where lower price bids occur later?
No, this is the first time Eversource at least has had to run a second offering of the RFP. I know UI has had to do that before, but in this case, at least in Eversource territory, we've only had to do that so far this year. So that we can't draw any conclusions on that statement.
Okay, thank you for that response. Now I would like to turn to slide 9, please. So my question here is directed to UI. Can UI please explain the reasons behind the decline in its average bid price in year 5 compared to year 4, especially in contrast to Eversource's average bid price increase that we had just referenced previously?
In year 4, I think one of the things that we should note is that although we don't receive a large quantity of bids, we did receive in year 4 a bid that exceeded, they submitted a price cap that was above what they're eligible for. And because we have a low amount of bids submitted, I think that really skews the results here. And that's why we see such a large decline from year 4 to year 5.
Okay, thank you for that response. I would like to turn to a different topic. Can we please turn to slide 11? So my question here, are there any potential scenarios where a project might qualify as a Category 4 facility that is not covered in the slide? If so, could the EDCs please explain?
Not under Category 4, not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
There
thank you.
Other, oh,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say there are other categories where different types of projects can qualify, but our understanding is that Category 4 is specific to low-income community shared solar.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Now I'd like to turn to slide 15, please. So in written comments, OCC expressed uncertainty about whether all customers receiving a low-income discount rate qualify for the low-income bonus tax credit because customers who become ineligible for LiDAR may remain enrolled in LiDAR for about a year before their status is updated. So considering OCC's comments, can the EDCs please clarify whether an attestation letter would be sufficient proof that a project meets the requirements for the low income bonus credit?
Sure, yeah, it's our understanding that this is a one-time filing requirement with the IRS once the project enters service. And so it's not ongoing reporting to the IRS to ensure that all customers that are enrolled initially as a qualifying household, as a qualifying low income household, if there's change over time, I don't like the IRS doesn't come back and check again. So as long as we know when we do the enrollment that every customer's qualifying based on LIDR participation would meet that initial requirement for the IRS. And then additionally, as time goes on with the SCEF facilities, we do annually replace customers that fall out of the program to maintain our ratios for the different subscriber allocations. And so if we do lose low-income customers over time for a given SCEF, we will replace those customers with other low-income customers that qualify based on current participation in LIDR.
Okay, thank you for that response. So to follow up, I think OCC was referencing that some LiDAR customers may not actually be eligible for the low income bonus tax credit because they may become ineligible but then remained enrolled in LiDAR for some sort of grace period. So could you speak to that about whether the project would still be eligible for the low income bonus tax credit considering that?
I mean, I think that would be an IRS decision, but we can only do the best we can with the information that we have. So customers who get enrolled in LiDAR are in the program for a full year. When we do an enrollment, it's basically a snapshot in time based on what customer pool we have at that time when we do our enrollment. The SCEF program only requires income verification once. So that potentially could be an issue, but it would be a determination that the IRS would have to make if they felt like they wanted to get to that level of granularity. We don't recheck customers once they've been enrolled in LiDAR, even if their income situation has changed. They're eligible to stay in the program for the full duration of that year.
Okay, thank you for that response. So now I just have a few more questions. Can we please turn to slide 16? So my question here, can the EDCs please clarify the differences between the current New Start bill forgiveness program and the new matching payment program set to launch November 1st? And specifically, how will the new payment program affect SCEF customer enrollment and participation?
Sure. So basically the new matching payment program, to my understanding, is kind of a combination between the old New Start and Bill forgiveness programs and the old Eversource matching payment program, and I believe it's the UIMAPP program. So previously, in order to participate in the matching payment program, the customer had also been required to be receiving energy assistance, and that was not a requirement for New Start customers. New Start customers just had to have a requirement for a certain balance amount. I believe it was $100, 60 days past due, but they weren't receiving any other energy assistance. And also, the New Start program and the bill forgiveness program basically, for every, it put a customer on a budget, and every time that they made their budget payment, their arrearage balance would be 1/12 of their arrearage balance would be forgiven. With the new matching payment program, for every payment that a customer makes, the EDC will match that payment amount. So it's a different kind of repayment structure. But given the limitations on who could participate in the old matching payment program, when we originally designed the kind of prioritization process for SCEF enrollment, stakeholders in our working group felt like New Start customers could benefit more from a SCEF subscription because they weren't receiving energy assistance. Now that that requirement to participate in matching payment has been eliminated, it's not to say that customers might be receiving energy assistance, but we essentially only have one program in which we know that there are customers who are struggling to pay their bills and have enrolled in programs to assist them with arrearage forgiveness, which is why we are suggesting prioritization of the new MPP customers going forwards.
I appreciate that response. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn to a different topic. So given, and this doesn't refer to any specific slide, so given the potential for developer confusion regarding the definition of a parcel in the SCEF program, would the EDCs support including a more explicit parcel definition in the program documents? Why or why not?
This is Brian Rice for Eversource Energy. I'll field this one. We certainly wouldn't oppose including a definition if Pura thought that would be constructive based on the input of other stakeholders. I think the only thing we'd offer up is a good example is Massachusetts has had a single parcel rule for net metering facilities for well over a decade, and that's been administered cleanly without the need to define parcel. So we don't think it's necessary, but we'd be happily include a definition if Pura wanted to.
Thank you for that response. So now I just have one final question. And again, this does not refer to any specific slides. Do the EDCs agree with DEEP's recommendation to set a separate price cap of $160 for solar canopies? Why or why not?
Well, I don't think the EDCs have a recommendation one way or the other. I think we recognize that there are additional costs that go into building a solar canopy project, and that the economics are likely challenging for many, potentially even all solar canopy projects under the current price cap. We don't have specific data to support that, but it wouldn't surprise us to learn that was true. On the other hand, we also recognize that there are important cost considerations for the program as a whole, and that potentially providing additional compensation to individual projects would have impacts on the total cost of the program.
Thank you for that response, Mr. Rice. So those are all of my questions. So I thank the EDCs again for their time and presentation today. So I turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And finally, from the authority, we have Brandon Kavanaugh. And just a reminder to stakeholders, if you have questions for the EDCs, I need you to get into the queue now, and we'll take you after Mr. Kavanaugh.
If I could interject quick, I do have answers to Molly's questions. If I could,
Okay.
or if you'd rather me provide them after the fact, it's up to you.
No, let's go ahead and take those now. Just make sure that Molly is on board. I think she is. Go for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the question about the repeat bids from year 4 to year 5, non-selected bids so far, at least what's public, we didn't have any. That might change when final results are in. And also the question on average selected system size. So in year 2, the average selected size was 3.3 megawatts. Year 3, the same, 3.3 megawatts. Year 4 was 3.6 megawatts. And year 5 so far, it's down to 2.2 megawatts. And I believe those were the 2 questions that you had, Molly.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the additional information there.
You're welcome. And thank you for the time to get that in there.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the EDCs for your time today. Just one question from me. It doesn't pertain to a particular slide, just more of a general question for the EDCs. Does anyone have any thoughts on how we could increase customer enrollment in the SCEF program?
I'm not sure I understand. Are you saying opt-in customer enrollment?
Well, so my understanding is that participation could be higher. If that understanding is incorrect, apologies, please let me know. But just that participation could be higher. If that's the case, any thoughts on how to increase that participation?
I guess, yeah, I think it's still helpful to clarify. When you say participation, are you meaning participation of kind of bidders, customers with projects, or subscribers?
Subscribers.
Yeah, we're not seeing any issue with subscriber enrollment because we use an opt-out model and we have a very large pool of eligible customers that we can enroll. I think what may be perceived as limitations on customer enrollment has been the delay and the length of time that it's taken for new projects to come online. So for example, we launched the first RFP for the SCEF program in 2020. And we just had our first project, Eversource just had its first project come online in May of 2024. But we don't have a lack of customers who are eligible. We just don't have enough capacity or projects online to enroll all of the eligible customers yet.
Understood. Appreciate it. Thank you. Chair, back to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I believe those are the questions from Pura staff. So again, I'm looking for any questions from stakeholders regarding the EDC's presentations. All right, if there are no questions, then I want to thank the EDCs for your presentation. And we are going to turn to the next item on our agenda, and that is a general opportunity for stakeholders to comment. We had listed several topics explicitly for discussion. So if there are any stakeholders who wish to comment on total project megawatts, annual megawatt capacity, and the highest total compensation, those 3 items that were listed on the agenda for discussion this morning, we'll take any comments now. Really? No questions, no comments this morning? If not, we will, let's go ahead and move toward adjournment. The next item on the docket for this, on the agenda for this docket are briefs, which are due October 21st by 4 p.m. And the remainder of the schedule is available in the external calendar in Lotus. So I want to thank the EDCs for their presentation this morning, as well as for answering our questions. And seeing that there are no further comments or questions,